Now to get the width of your fold, you are going to make use of your armhole depth plus 1 inch. Now my armhole depth is 7.5 plus 1 inch is 8.5. So I have to fold it into 2 first. Since I'm going to be folding into 2, you are going to use 8.5 plus 8.5. That will give you 17. So right now I have 17 inches on fold. Now these 2 pieces that we have here are for the 2 sleeves. We will be cutting the 2 sleeves together. The next thing to do is to take the length of the sleeve, and for me the length of my sleeve is 23. So 23 inches plus half inch for joining it to the bodies is going to be 23 and a half plus 2 inches extra for the fold at the hem. Now we have 2 pieces on fold. The next one I'm going to do is to fold it into 2 again. Now we have 4 pieces, which is meant for the 2 sleeves. The next thing to do, if you measure it right now, you're going to find out that it's going to give you 8.5, which is your armhole depth plus 1 inch. The next thing we're going to do is to come down by 3.5 inches for our cap height. Next, you are going to connect that 3.5 inches to the center part of your sleeve. That's the folded part of your sleeve. See how I'm creating a curve? As you can see, I just started adjusting that so it can look very nice and not too curvy. The next thing I did was to bring in the dress I was making, and I measured around the arm. After taking the measurement, I got 8.5. The next thing I did was to measure that 8.5 on the curve I had already made on that fabric for the sleeve, and then I chalked that down and I added 1 inch extra to that 8.5. As the 1 inch I added is for the joining allowance. The next thing I did was to measure down to my elbow length, and my elbow length is 11 and a half. I added half inch for joining allowance, which made it 12 inches. From that point, you take your round elbow measurement plus 1 inches extra for sewing allowance. Next thing is to connect those 2 measurements together from your cap height to your elbow width. Now at this point, you're going to impute your round sleeve measurement plus 2 inches extra. Now you connect those points together from the hemline to the elbow to the cap height. Now you're going to come up by 2 inches from the lower part. That's going to serve as your allowance to hem the lower part. The next thing to do is to take one piece of your sleeve, then you fold down the 2 inches using a pin to secure it. The next thing is to run a stitch on that line. The next thing you're going to do is to open it up, notch the center of the fabric. I am going to merge the center part of the sleeve to the center part of the bodice of the gown. Now you're going to run a stitch holding the sleeve, joining the sleeve to the armhole of the gown. Now when you get to the side seam of the gown, you are going to make a stitch there and stop there. After stitching, this is how it looks. Just so you know, we just made half part of one sleeve. Now we are going to go ahead to stitch the other half of that particular sleeve. Now you are going to measure the same amount of allowance you left at the other side. You are going to use that same allowance, spread the other side out, make sure you're using the same allowance for the other half. Then you're going to start from that exact point all the way to the center. Just make sure you use a pin to hold that point so it doesn't move, so you can sew it easily and neatly all the way to the center. Now this is how it looks. The next thing is to stitch that place closed. Due to the fact that this sleeve has a slit at the side, what we are going to do is to measure the round sleeve on that point. Mine is 9 divided by 2 is 4.5, but I'm not going to sew. I'm going to come down from that hemline down to 4 inches for my opening length. Now I'm going to start my stitch from that 4 inches there. See, I'm measuring how wide my round sleeve will be. Whenever I get there, I'm just going to trace it down to that 4 inches for my slit. Now that is where I'm going to start my sewing. From the top of your sleeve, you're going to measure down to your elbow length. Mine is 11 and a half. From that point, I'm going to measure my elbow width, which is 10 inches. 10 inches divided by 2 is 5. Now you're going to connect those 2 points together, and you're going to run a stitch down to your elbow point all the way up to your cap height. Once you get to that point, you're going to make a stitch there so that it doesn't lose. Make a proper stitch there. Now we are back to the slit. Now you're going to open it up, fold it, use a pin to hold it down so it's going to be in place. After folding it, you're going to hem it properly. You're going to use hemming stitch with your needle and your thread. To hem it, you're going to fold the tip of that fabric. You're going to fold it, then you're going to pass in your needle. You're going to hem it in a way that your thread is not going to show on the right part of your fabric. As you can see, I went ahead to hem and hem till I got to the other point, and I just cut my thread there. After hemming it, I just went ahead to give it a good press. Just make sure that that slit is laying very flat and beautiful. Thanks for watching. Bye.